We doing, girl? You good, girl? Yeah? What? Ooh. Oh. Oh no. Got doggies in the backyard. Well, it's the week after Thanksgiving. Hopefully, everyone had an enjoyable and peaceful time with others that bring them fulfillment and joy to their lives. Mine went exactly as planned. Wasn't expected anywhere. Didn't go anywhere. Just stayed home just like any other normal day. Phone never rang, just like I expected, you know. There still was that, that thought in the back of my head going, maybe, just maybe. Then the phone gave off a text. Oh, go ahead and you take a look at it, No. It's just another company reminding you that, hey, we got Black Friday going on. We'll be your friend. We'll see how deep we can get in the back of your pocket. Yep. Everybody's out there to make a buck, man. I tell you what, those are the phone calls that I got on Thanksgiving. Yep. From everybody just wanting to remind me about, hey, where to spend my money at. Those companies will definitely be proud to be your friend. They just want to get in your back pocket a little bit for it, Speaking of friends, they're the first ones that slowly disappear over time, as you get older. First it's, because of girlfriends, then for others, college, work, eventually just plain moving, so far away that eventually, now it's physically, you're not, one excuse after the other just keeps piling up on but, yeah. And then of course there's the co-workers. There might be a few that throughout the years that you're able to stay in touch with, but even those eventually fizzle out. For the most part, once you leave that job, they go along with it, or go away with it, basically, But that's friends, that's to be expected, right? How about family? We don't expect that to be the same way, do we? We would think not, but however, it happens. When I think back in my mind, way back, and try to go back as far as I can think, way years past, I start to remember, when I was a child, how exciting that day was, Man, for starters, think about it. That meant that you were only a month away from Christmas, man. And there was food. Oh, man, there was food all day that normally was never in the house, that you could snack on, And Mom she actually went and stocked up the fridge with with Coke and crushed soda. Crushed soda. Hey, there's one for you. I wonder if they still make crushed soda. Boy, So yeah, man, you can be snacking all day, be drinking all day, and it also meant that you got to be able to see your cousins and play with your cousins that you normally don't get to see, Yeah. So, when I think back about, times like that, hey, that was always, enjoyable. It was the next most important day next to Christmas. Hey, times you stay at home and everybody come to you, and other times you'd all pile in the car and you go to grandma's house. Hey, you were a kid. You just went wherever your parents took you. And then as you continue to keep thinking, you know, as the years pass, you remember, well, you know, I always remember a lot of arguing going on. You know, what was all the arguing always about? You really can't touch base on that exactly because, hey, you're, just a kid. You remember a few highlights, but those highlights they always seem to, in the back of your mind are there too, that always seemed to be a part of it. The adults always fighting about something, You never really knew what it was. Later in life, you learned what it was. Yeah. You learned that they were normally talking and arguing about, guess what? Money, politics, this and that, and the other, but money and politics, hey, that was always at the very top of the list right there, man. A few other topics that you really didn't understand back then, but, you knew the idea of money, at least, Everything else was kind of, a hit and a miss, but they were always arguing about something. That's, that was always kind of disturbing, Sit there and you start thinking some more and you fast forward like 20 years. So now we're entering a whole new chapter, I'm living on my own, living in Fresno, California, with supposedly at that time, which was my fiance Lisa, that all that was going to work out way back then. So, again, it was either staying there in Fresno with her parents or the occasional, you would go down to Simi Valley, California, where my parents were at the time. And we would spend Thanksgiving then with them. And that was really the only time that I ever got to really have any time with my brother because he's 20 years younger than me. So that's probably one of the reasons why, to this day, my brother and I don't communicate because, well, we basically never really had a bringing up together, to be able to get that connection and bond. And I guess that really goes back somewhat more so even with my sister too, we're 10 years apart, but there's still that age difference, and of course that would always come up, my parents, they would always get ticked off. Oh, see, we're in the wrong again. I never said nothing about anybody being in the wrong. We had you all too far apart and this and that and the other. No, I just keep thinking that we should be able to get together as a family. I've always tried that. Always throughout the years. Always without fail. But, as we continue to sit here and think, you come up with, well, okay, so that basically explains, the brother and sister, sister situation, It's just a time difference there. We just, it's just one of those things, right? And what was I thinking about? You messed up my train of thought there, girl. Yeah, so anyhow, brother and sister eventually get married. I end up enlisting in the Navy. End up getting married myself, and settling down here, halfway across the country in Florida, which makes it even more difficult every year for, any of us to get together. So, but everyone has their own family by this point in time in the game. And so that's basically what ends up happening on Thanksgiving is on Thanksgiving, everyone basically, is more focused at that point in time with their own immediate family. What? Yeah, so like I was saying, anyhow. Uh, Everyone's basically focusing on their own immediate family, and which is great, and we did that for many years. Thanksgiving was always here at this home, right here. It was Dorothy and her mother and her sister and her brother, and then my daughter and, all of her family. They, everyone would come over, and that would be the same for Thanksgiving and Christmas. Well, then we start going as years progress, and the ones that really, kept that tradition going. What? I'm trying to tell a story, and you just don't want nothing to do about it right now, huh? Yeah, but like I was saying, then the ones that really kept that tradition going, like my wife's mother, which would be Dottie, and then again later, her sister Karen, when they both ended up passing, that's basically when Thanksgiving came to a halt here at this house, which was fine. It kind of, we easily we transitioned over to, okay, now we're going to have Thanksgiving at my daughter's house, Of course, my daughter today would remind me to tell you all that that's incorrect. She's my stepdaughter, and it's a totally different scenario on that. Yes, the same arguments that my parents back in the day that I remember them having about. Yes, throughout the years, I got to realize what those arguments were about. Yet again, money, politics. Yeah. Blood relative. Yes, that always came up too, It came up with my parents when I first got married. And I always got excited about how I had another grandchild and all that. My dad right off the bat would always remind me, oh, but son, again, they're not blood related. In my mind, hey. But that's where we were at with that, It just... So anyhow, like when Dorothy's mother passed away, Dottie, I started getting more and more in the bandwagon of with my family and even with her family. And, hey, it doesn't have to be Thanksgiving, doesn't have to be Christmas. Let's plan a vacation together. And let's actually do a family reunion, Hey, if you all out there still have people that actually try to put something like that together and everyone ends up going, oh, be thankful for that. That I've learned that's an extremely difficult process just to get past step number one, which is to try to get the family together to begin with. I don't know why it's so difficult, but it was. So I never was able to get past square one, I would try to every year a new approach and, have a different idea on, where we can go and how we can do it. And, again, the very first topic that always came up was money, you try to resolve that situation, and they would still bring up another one, If it wasn't about money, it was about not being able to get time off from work and this and that and the other. And, even though everyone had their own individual lives and, it's like they work in a Africa. I can't pronounce that word correctly. Sacrifice? Yeah, sacrifice. Their vacation time just to spend vacation time with you. They had time every single year. That's what always got me. That was always another argument too. So I thought, well, this is something that you can plan. They plan for their vacation, so let's everybody try to plan their vacation around same time frame, and let's try to make the same time frame to where everyone can be somewhere together. And everyone's always complaining how the holiday, how Thanksgiving and Christmas might be too difficult because of that particular time frame. Well, let's try it during another time frame. No, it never worked out. It never did. So, like I said, I was never able to get past square one. Oh, I take that back. Actually, the closest I ever gotten to that was last year. So last year, had a vacation planned. So it was going to be myself, my wife, her brother, and my parents. Well, my parents ended up backing out. And unfortunately, because they backed out, well, Dorothy passed this year, and so that never happened. But again, it concreted, my, all thinking of, see? I didn't want to say I told you so, but I told you so type of thing, I mean, I'm sure that's the wrong attitude to even think about, but, that's just in the back of my mind. That's, what I kept thinking, Hey, everyone wants to keep putting it off and, say we'll do it again next year. That was the other good argument that they will always would bring up. Well, this year's not a good year. Maybe next year, Hey, next year might never happen, So if you have the opportunity and you're invited to go visit with your family, then take that opportunity up and do so, It might be the last time. It really might be, because nobody can truly tell you what's going to happen tomorrow, let alone next year, Heck. So anyhow, you end up in this vicious cycle of always trying to get everybody together, it never working out. And then again, the few times that you are even being able to actually physically see somebody or even have somebody on the phone, guess what? Person on the other end of the line on the phone, you end up arguing with them, Well, what's up with that, man? How come we're always fighting over money and politics, and we can't get past A, B, and C to and put we can't put all that stuff down and over to the side and forget about it and keep it locked up and just focus on the family, Yeah. I never remembered it being this difficult, but it seems like as the years progress, as the new generation, my daughter would take over. That seemed to be more and more of the case. They're gonna do their own thing, and likewise with all my grandchildren. They got their own thing going now. Everyone's, in their own direction, it's, they're not, I guess what I'm trying to say is you go back to Dorothy's mother, everyone knew there was no way around that, hey, it's Thanksgiving. Everybody's expected to be here. And that's how things were, And yes, there was still the arguments going on stuff, but I don't remember them being that heated or that big of a debate way back then, as they've been so over the years past, I guess, this shows you how much can happen in 60 plus years, right? Yeah. So anyhow, just like I was saying earlier, so when my wife passed away earlier this year, that's again when my daughter had made that quotation to me of, you know, that she's not my daughter, she's my stepdaughter, and, you know, I want nothing to do with you. And so she was the one that decided that this year she needed to get out the axe and do a little pruning on the old family tree, you know, or as she basically ended up doing a good old butchering, you know? Because basically what she ended up doing is, because she decided to go ahead and cut off our communication, that meant she also wanted to cut off the communication with my grandsons and my great-grandsons that I actually had. Oh, and of course my dad would remind me that that doesn't matter anyhow, because, again, none of them were blood relative. Okay, well, so now I got that part of the family not talking to me. The only part of Dorothy's family left is her brother. He occasionally called me a couple times and haven't heard him since, so that's probably going that same direction. Her sister, and I expect her sister not to call me because she's deaf, so it's difficult for her to communicate unless, you know, she physically involves a third party, you know. So that leaves them out of the question. Friends have been long gone. My side of the family, same thing. My own brother and sister, you know, I've tried to communicate many times with them in the past, and it's, you know, ended up being a dead end. Especially this year when I reached out to everybody I can possibly think of when my wife passed away, you know. I mean, like from my brother and what have you, you know. Or even my uncle that we used to spend a lot of time with too. My Uncle Tom. I remember going to Santa Barbara many times when we were growing up together, and we'd go out and have a great time together. I went skiing one time too. I remember that time. You know, but my Uncle Tom, we used to spend a lot of time together growing up, and even in our younger years, when we both had girlfriends, and he had a girlfriend at the time. That's when we went skiing, you know. And so there's a lot of times that I can remember. But you know, you call him up too, and it's the same thing. You're lucky if you get a text back, you know. So again, it's that same situation, you know. Everyone's set in their own ways, their own schedule, and you know, is so. In conclusion, yeah, I've desperately over many years tried to get everyone together, and they finally came to the conclusion that, you know, look, it's pretty damn obvious to me that, you know, that's not the direction nobody wants to go anymore. So I'm done with doing it. I'm not doing it. I'll continue to now just wait and be here. And, you know, now if they change their mind, yeah, I'll answer the phone. I'll be the first one to answer. You know, I'll be willing to, you know, and yes, I'm willing to set aside arguments and this and that and the other, and not be one to cause any type of argument. But for some reason, even if you're the one saying that you want to be able to do that, we try to get everybody else involved on the same page. That's a totally different scenario. But Yeah, so I guess my conclusion is on all this is, yes, it happens. If, and think about it in your life. Is there that particular someone that in the family that, you thought about? Whatever happened to that cousin that we used to have, That, and now, when you start thinking about it, you can't even find a phone number or anybody that has any information. Then, is that person even still alive? Who knows? Yeah, there's a couple in my mind with our family that, I think about that, quite a bit, because I don't have any phone numbers no more, and when you try to talk to anybody else, chances are they don't have a phone number either. So it makes you wonder, how does a family like that, a bloodline especially, and to me, get so fractured that everyone just loses communication. And what more, what's the problem? What is the problem with proper communication and listening? That's what it really comes down to. Being able to be out there and being able to listen and communicate properly. Let's not be always being, wanting to talk right off the bat about, arguing about money and politics and blood relatives and this and that and the other, So anyhow, it'd be nice to say that no, that didn't happen to families. But yes, it does. I guess friends is one thing that's that's easier to digest when, a friend, you lose communication with a friend, that's more easily, your mind can accept that more. But, when your family starts becoming that way, and then, well, that makes you start to think and wonder, Now, it makes you also wonder too, what are they thinking? Obviously it doesn't bother them, because if it did bother them, I think they'd be picking up the phone. But no one is. No one's thinking about the fact that, he is still part of the family, and so, but I guess that's where you have to finally just, again, say, okay, it's fine. Focus on your life. Focus on your dogs like I'm doing here. And hopefully start getting out and meeting new friends and continuing with a life that you can control. Because in situations like this, unfortunately, we don't have control of that, do we? I wish everyone a great day, and we'll see everybody on the next side road.
One they say is the loneliest number that you'll ever do. One they say is the loneliest number that you'll ever do. One they say that you'll ever do. However, I must say that with today's time, that this is a stray. For you can have over 500 on social media and they still never reply. What they say is the loneliest number that you'll ever do. What they say is the loneliest number that you'll ever do. One they say is the loneliest number that you'll ever do. So you think about yesterday and start calling out to those of yesterday. And it again hits you that our true loneliness doesn't have a number when no one calls. One is the loneliest number that you'll ever do. One is the loneliest number that you'll ever do. One is the loneliest number that you'll ever do. You can have over 500 on social media and still no one cares. You can have over 200 on your own phone and still no one cares. You can be down to the last two, and even then they don't care. For one is the loneliest number that you'll ever do. For one is the loneliest number that you'll ever do. And there is only one reason for my existence, and that's for the unconditional love from my daughter.
Happy trails to you until we meet again. Happy trails to you. Our wags will never end. Happy trails to you until we meet again. Happy trails to you. Our wags will never end. Until our next adventure, be sure to check the side road. For that's where you'll find us, tails a-wagging on seeing your arrival again. Happy trails to you until we meet again. Our wags will never